The American economy has always been known as an industrial powerhouse. As with any other economy, there are periods of expansions and recessions that take place, and an example of this would be the Great Depression in the American economy. Some causes for this was, as shown here, the stock market crash in 1929, overproduction from farmers, and insecurity of banks. This event occurred during President Hoover's presidency, and he believed in laissez-faire policy, which caused him to take a hands-off approach of the economy. On the other hand, according to moral courage and intelligent disobedience in the military, which is a College Board stimulus, sometimes it's better to break the status quo and go out of the norm for the better good. This is the ideology that FDR followed, and he believed it was the federal government's responsibility to help the people, and this caused him to create the New Deal. Hello, my name is Sebastian Vargas, and today we'll be discussing the Great Depression and FDR's New Deal. My research question is to what extent did FDR's New Deal programs help in the relief of the American economy, and my argument is that FDR's New Deal programs did help significantly aid the relief of the American economy, but ultimately World War II is what truly ended the Great Depression. Citing FDR's inaugural address, which is another College Board's stimulus, he wanted the nation to endure and prosper, and his primary goal to achieve this was to put people to work. Some background on unemployment is there's three main types of unemployment. The first one being frictional, which is where workers voluntarily leave their jobs in search of better working opportunities. The second one is structural, where workers' skills mismatch the demands of their employers. And the last one is cyclical, where periods of expansion and recession is what causes fluctuations in unemployment. Moving on to the impact of unemployment, according to Richard Jensen from the Journal of Economic History, as in here, structural unemployment was right under 10% throughout the period of the Great Depression, and cyclical unemployment was very significant through the early 1930s, but slowly after that it started to decrease. Now, how does the Great Depression affect unemployment? Here on the normal flow of unemployment, people who leave their jobs and go into job search are counterbalanced by people who are being rehired or find the better jobs that they were initially looking for. But on the Great Depression, this is affected because people who go into job research often fall into the hardcore unemployed, which is characterized by long periods of unemployment. These people, also the people who are being rehired, are different from the people who find jobs through work relief programs. And according to Richard Jensen, roughly 10% of these hardcore unemployed who go back into the jobs through the WPA, roughly 50% of them lost their jobs quickly, and this caused them to return back into the loop of WPA, which promised them employment. Moving on to the WPA, which is the Works Progress Administration. Citing back to FDR's inaugural address, Arthur Myers, who is a WPA assistant administrator, said that the primary purpose of the WPA was to provide relief, work relief, and increase employment, like providing purposeful projects. Moving on to government funding, according to Priscilla Ferguson from the Pennsylvania Magazine of History and Biography, the Civil Works Administration received $951 million in funding. The Federal Agency Relief Administration received $4 billion in funding. And finally, the WPA received over $10.5 billion in funding from 1933 to 43, which shows how ambitious the program was. According to Priscilla Ferguson, up to 30 million Americans were aided by WPA by 1943, and this included workers and their dependents. Secondly, the CCC, which is the Civilian Conservation Corps. According to Robert Fechner, right under 2 million idle young men were employed to do public conservation projects, and these young men brought home roughly $400 million in income. Now, the CCC was very significant because of the conservation work they took into place, and according to Robert Fechner, this included more than 1 billion trees being planted, 80,000 miles of truck trails and minor roads built, thousands of acres of parkland and forest land being developed, 50,000 telephone lines laid, 40,000 buildings constructed, and millions of acres of farmlands given new protection from erosion. Now, focusing on the erosion that we discussed, this was very significant because during the same time period, the Dust Bowl was occurring, which was a very significant environmental program caused by excess soil erosion. This prevented farmers from growing their crops and also forced them to move out of their farms. And also, as seen in this picture, this is CCC workers working on national parks. This is specifically the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And the aftermath of this, according to Blake Alsbach, is that the roots from these trees help to hold down the soil and protect it from wind and rainfall, which brought it into the Dust Bowl. And now us as a nation can enjoy the national parks such as the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Moving on to some limitations of these programs is that according to Price Fishback from the National Bureau of Economic Research, saying back to the chart we discussed before, even though these programs did help stabilize the economy, the government started receiving diminishing returns from further spending since they failed to bring unemployment levels back to normal levels, like before the Great Depression. But on the other hand, according to David Kennedy from Political Science Quarterly, these programs did leave a significant legacy since they helped develop the infrastructure of the nation through roads, buildings, national parks, etc. They also helped restore agricultural lands and bring them to the Dust Bowl. They brought economic relief to low-income workers and their families, and they put in place legislation such as laws and regulations in the workforce, which some of them are still in place today. In conclusion, FDR's goals of alleviating unemployment was reflected to his creation of the WPI and the CCC. They tried to address cyclical and structural unemployment, and they brought many benefits and left legacies as they helped families receive economic relief. They helped develop the nation infrastructure, and ultimately these programs helped stabilize the economy, which was necessary for World War II to be able to pull the nation out of the Great Depression. Any questions?
All right, Sebastian, 2 questions for you. Okay, first one. How did your research question evolve as you moved through this entire research process?
Well, I initially wanted to cover FDR's New Deal programs as a whole in more general view, but after I started doing research, I focused more on unemployment, which was like one of the biggest reasons he created the New Deal in the first place, and it helped me focus on these 2 programs I discussed.
Okay. And if you had more time, what additional research would you have conducted on this?
I may have gone more into depth on maybe the 2 programs I discussed. The Civil Works Administration and Federal Emergency Relief Administration, maybe focused also more on those 2. Maybe they have bigger impact compared to WP and CCC.